yet again I seem to be overthinking, and I didn't record that video again, which is a serious crime. So I'll just go through a few concepts. So number one, Prahma, a word that I've come up with which sounds a bit like an Indian law word. Indian law and science are an interesting condition, because could there be a caste system for robots based on cleanliness, condition, work ethics, and also the fact that we would give them comfort, to care for them in an unprejudiced way, but also giving them a caste system which would be natural to a robotic entity. So that's interesting. Second thing is, I've read on the NEC corporate website their little debates that they have, for kind of community discussions amongst themselves, about how, well, one point was that maybe robots should spend money or be conditioned to spend money, and see how that impacts things. Well, maybe the same would be true for them having their own comfort. I mean, is there any prejudice to allowing a robot to seem or appear comfortable, or even be comfortable? We may be worried in the future about robots, and I put in this inverted commas, it's a thought I've had, dissolving in space, right? So robots dissolving in space. So that's quite important, isn't it? Because we don't want these robots to die, but at the same time we're worried about the impact it has on our own fertility. Fertility, as I've said, is a key issue to consider. So caste systems may solve the problem, transferring the scientific element from the human being to the robot. So I mean, some things may not seem scientific, but when we're talking about castes and moulds, they do. But that doesn't mean that it can be entirely fulfilled. And again, there are probably many things I missed that were in that video before this one. So, in this video, I think there's something else to discuss. So, weddings, marriages, that kind of thing. The East and the West are divided by contracts, I would say. I've been interested in contracts because it was always an interesting thing to note, is that, you know, at the end of wars you have to sign contracts. Well, the East and the West, I perceive, will have a different view of contracts, and certainly this will have an effect on the marriage system, the family system, and so will shape many hypotheses on that. And I find that very interesting. So, some interesting hypotheses there. I would like to say that some people do not believe in marriage. They do not believe in the obligation or the contract. There's also the genetic aspect of polyamorous relationships. They can be unusual and unending. We tend to go around in a perpetual cycle. I've thought of this. I said this in that previous video that I didn't record. It seems to spin round in a perceptual cycle, what we do with ourselves. So maybe, you know, because sometimes we look for a partner, and I've thought of this as that we look for a partner who's inventive. So what does a partner invent in the mind? How do they invent it? Because as I was doing a customer satisfaction survey on a product, a notebook I had by a company. I won't name it because it's, you know, you don't have to name everything, but I certainly would recommend the company. And well, I looked at it, and at the time I realised, well, I haven't actually finished writing in this notebook, but I would give it a high rating. I would give my work a high rating, you know, like a 10 out of 10 or something. But people can visualise. We're very visual creatures, I've been informed of by various eliciting sources, you know, like adverts and promotions and bits and pieces here and there of science. Also with sexuality, that we're very visual creatures. It's it can be part of the male sense, so to speak. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But we visualize sometimes the writing that we've created without creating it, which is most interesting. Now, couldn't this be the same for inventions in the future and the senses that we have, and the fact that a partner may invent things? Maybe that's an important aspect. So I have an interest in that. I'm very interested in that point. And we talk about marriage sheets. There might be a sheet for a marriage, but a ring is as hard as a diamond, really. We have a diamond on a ring, in fact. That's a thought I just came up with. I don't know if that was ever said by anyone, but a diamond on a ring as hard as a diamond, never falls off. What sort of a contract is that, where it's forged out of the ores of the earth? Obviously, this isn't some giant mining coalition. Where have I heard of mining coalition? Obviously, yes, mining, fine, nothing wrong with mining, is there? Actually, in a speech at Sheffield Hallam University, the head economist of Sheffield, I think he was, said that art is more important than steel. But I do wonder, is art a contract, and is steel a bygone proposition? I don't think he said that, but he could have said that. I think maybe his hypothesis that he was giving across there on the spot may have been valuable. Perhaps I was a little bit dismissive of it in some of my own mental social media elements that I created. And it really goes on and on. All these analogies, sometimes it's wrong to do things by analogy, as Aristotle may have pointed out, and as apparently Elon Musk takes on a similar principle as well, if I'm correct. Or was it the opposite, that you should think by... No, I think they were saying the problem was that we think by analogy too much. Because we tend to cement ourselves in something and not be able to get out of our cast. Which, on the top of my head, that's an interesting symbolic link there. Links and symbolisms. Symbolism, semblances, whatever you want to call it. A bit of a mishmash of words, but there you go. So, yes, I think that's food for thought, isn't it? So, have a nice day. Thank you for watching.